Hey guys, Kalendros here. We're going to be doing a video for, not a video actually. I tried to find a video. There was one, but it wasn't really great. It was from a newer tour from Therion, and it just wasn't. Um, well, I mean, I'll be honest here. The newer iteration of Therion is not as good as the older stuff. And actually, obviously the new album is getting great reviews. So, you know, I don't think it's necessarily um, so much of a problem really with that. It's more that there's I don't know, the live shows have not seemed to have been as good. But I think really it just there's a level of nostalgia when it comes to that older lineup. Where you had Matt Slevin and you had Lori and Snowy Shaw and yeah, I mean the new stuff isn't terrible. It's just it's not and the Abraxas is the song that we're going to do is Abraxas is a song where um, it part obviously a big part of it is reliant upon Lori, and she was in that live video. It was still her at that time, um, but it also relies heavily on the musical section of the band because it's Abraxas is a track with a lot of musical heft to it. So we'll get into that. As you guys may have noticed, I've changed some things around with the setup. We'll see if this works a little bit better. Um, I've got the camera more straight on towards me, so it's less will be less hopefully of me looking off to the side. I tried actually to set up everything on because for those of you who don't know, I've streamed a lot on Twitch for years. So I use a setup based on my Twitch setup. But unfortunately, it doesn't really work all that well for vlogging because with a vlog, you need to be looking into the camera um, directly at your audience. Whereas when it's a gaming stream, people expect you to be looking at another monitor to read chat and monitor your FPS, stuff like that. And it's very, very, very difficult for me to break the habit of doing that. So I was going to try and move everything to one monitor, but unfortunately, when I did that, it screwed up um, the camera capture and stuff like that. And ultimately, I decided to stick with stick with that setup for now. Um, and maybe in the future when I get an SLR camera, I'll be able to do things a little differently. Um, Honestly, I feel like the best setup really for podcast or for vlogging is a stacked monitor setup, which you don't really see all that much. But but yeah, because that way your eye line is still directly facing the camera. I've also played around with a microphone. Now I've had this. This is a Blue Yeti microphone, which is very common mic among even top tier podcasters, which I am not. But one thing that I found is there's a lot of different settings in the Blue Yeti. So I've messed around with the settings a little bit. Um, the primary thing I found out that I was doing wrong is I had the microphone tilted down pointing towards me, which is wrong. The microphone reads from the side, not from the top, as you would expect. So by I've left the mic completely vertical now, instead of it being nearly completely horizontal as it was previously. So I'm hoping this will give a little more clarity. I also lowered the gain slightly, which will reduce ambient noise. The side effect of that is the volume level goes down when you reduce the gain. So I'm trying to find a happy medium. You guys let me know in the comments what the volume level is like. I did some volume tests before streaming, and this seemed like it was a good level, but it's hard for me to judge. It's really something that's better for you guys to give me feedback on. So with that, this will be a little bit different. You get to see a little bit more of the surroundings and less of the wall, which is cool. So this song, I'm a huge fan of Therion. I've already done one of their songs. I noticed earlier today, much to my surprise, Vin and Sori did a Therion song, their first ever, and absolutely were blown away by it, which is not surprising because Therion is an amazing band. I didn't exactly agree with that song choice, but it turned out they really loved it, so it worked. But this song, I wanted a song that was with a complete focus on the female vocals because this is, after all, Ladies Week. So, Abraxas is a song that is on, I believe it's on Lemuria. It's on the Sirius B Lemuria record. And I believe it's on the Lemuria side, if I remember correctly. And cool story with that, one of my most prized musical possessions is a vinyl of Lemuria and Sirius B that is signed by Christopher Johansson. So that, where's it? You know, I know I've always said it Johansson or Johansson, but I believe it's actually Johnson because I looked at the spelling and there's no A in the word in his last name at all. So perhaps I've been pronouncing it wrong this whole time. But regardless, this this is obviously a very prized possession. I love vinyl. I'm a huge fan of vinyl. And I love, especially with a vinyl like this one, where you have, they gave us these awesome picture books with the artwork, which is absolutely incredible. So, in a rare treat, I'm going to follow along with the lyrics in the booklet, which is really cool. So this is going to be something very, a little different than what we've done before. So I'm excited about that. Hopefully I don't knock everything over. I feel like this is like going to fall or something. Let me move one of these piles of beer over here, prop it up. And my Black Friday haul. So anyways, this is, let me find the song here. Abraxas, there we go. So this is the artwork, which is really cool for Abraxas. I'm not a mythology guy, so I don't know how well I'll be able to break down the lyrics from this because I am by no means a student of paganism, mysticism, occultism, which are all things that Therion's lyrics most frequently deal with. So we'll see how it goes. But let's go ahead and jump into this. Once again, I own this album, so I'm going to be using the iTunes for this. I don't know that it really makes a difference in sound quality, but it might. So we'll go ahead with that. And see you guys on the other side of the song. This is Abraxas by Therion. All right. So that was Abraxas by Therion. Um, Interesting. The structure of this song. And actually, before we do that, I want to look real quick at the credits here. Um, so this was track. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, track 8. No, track 9. Yeah, track 9. So let's see. Okay, so the singer for this track, the female. This was before they had Laurie Lewis in the band, unfortunately. The singer for this track was Anna Maria Crowe. I probably mangled that name for that young lady. But anyways, that was I really really like this song. I actually love this song from the minute I heard this album. Was one of the standout tracks for me on Lemuria, which I thought overall was the weaker of the two albums initially at the time. I think now, if I had to pick a favorite between the two, I would actually say that this album is the stronger one. This is actually the album that has all the death metal vocals on it because there's 3 songs, I believe, with death metal vocals on this one, and none on Sirius B. Typhoon obviously is all death metal vocals. And then the 3 ships of Barak 1 and 2 both have death metal vocals. I believe that's it for. I think the last track might have some death metal vocals. The Prometheus overture, that one might have some death metal vocals. I can't remember, but I also love the art on this album. But the thing that's really cool about this song is that it is, and this is actually fairly common for Therion, a lot of this song, almost all of it, is driven by the female vocals. Whether or not she was a main member of the band is really irrelevant because the idea behind Ladies Week is just to basically celebrate, women in metal and how there's a lot more of it out there. This is actually an older album. This was from, I want to say 2003 or 2004. It might not actually say on here when this was recorded. Oh, 2003. I was right. So recorded at Stockholm at the Modern Art Studio in July and September of 2003. It was released actually in 2004 because the final mastering was done September, October for the final instruments with the narration, mellotron, and Hammond organ were done in September, October. So 2004, 2005. I think this came out the end of 2004. It was actually the Prague Philharmonic Orchestra, which I believe they've used in a lot, not just Therion, but a lot of metal bands have used them. I'm pretty sure that's who played on Light of Day, Day of Darkness, on that, epic track. I want to say that's who, it was the Prague Symphony that played on Light of Day, Day of Darkness. So, we'll get into the lyrics in a second, but I want to talk a little bit musically about this song real quick. You have the first part of this song it's got a really interesting melody. The first time I heard it, I think I was a little put off by it because it took me a little bit to get adjusted to it because it's got that but it really sticks in your head. It's not something that you really forget. And so that part is kind of makes up the first part of the song, where you have and then basically offset by the like a standard basic like slow gallop, right? That makes up the first part of the song. And then from the minute, so there's only one solo male vocal line in this whole song. The rest of it's choir, and that was Matt's doing a yell. It's just like a yeah. That's really all there was as far as male vocals in this song, and it's a great scream because Matt's got that vocal range, but it's that's sort of the point where the song sort of changes, because then you get like this heavier riff that comes in, and then we go into my favorite part of the song, which is the insane double kick section with the choir behind it. Which I mean, this is nothing new if you've been listening to Dimmu Borgir or other bands like that. But at the time that I heard this, I was not listening to black metal. I did not really even know very much what black metal was. So this idea of having ultra heavy drums and guitar with the choir back behind it like that was something I had never heard before, and it just totally blew me away. And other Therion songs have heaviness with the choir, but this was like the first time I heard like that level of heaviness, like with those with the really fast double kick, like almost like death or black metal, drum. More, I would say, death than black metal. But Therion is an interesting band because their roots lie in both death and black metal. The band originally started as a symphonic death or black metal band, with like doom metal elements and stuff like that. And then over time, the extreme metal side of them sort of went away, but they sort of retained the same lyrical content, because all of their songs are written, I believe almost all of their songs, if not all of them, are written by Thomas Carlson, who is a pretty legendary occult mysticism guy. Scholar, you can call him a scholar. He's the head of the Dragon Rouge, I believe is the name of the order. Of which Christopher was a member for, he may still be, but for many, many years. And as a result, there's a large focus on paganism in their lyrics and occult mysticism. So this one is an interesting one because the lyrics are kind of, I would say more, there's a lot actually here that's tied to the Bible, which is really interesting. And we'll get into that because I'm not a Bible scholar. This might be one where I might actually, consult with someone who has a little more experience in this and maybe try and figure this out and post, if I can be able to decipher it with the help of, I might actually message Vin on this one because he might be able to give me a little bit of background on what some of this stuff means. So we'll get into it, when we get into the lyrics. But I want to get to the last part of the song, which is sort of a call and response section where you have the choir doing one part, and then you have the soprano doing another part, and then the choir actually is kind of dueling with itself at one point. And then you get into this really great guitar solo that ends off the song, that's sort of based around that melody, the that melody, kind of carries into the guitar solo, and then Christian just kind of goes crazy as he does, but very good guitar solo actually to end off the song, and then you get it's sort of the pace sort of picks up. And then, you kind of saw me probably in the video just, headbanging a little harder towards the end there. And then the double kick comes back in at the very end. Not as heavy as during that interlude section. Because this song really is a song of two parts. It's that first part, which has that very sort of stately, do 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 part, and then later on, a much more symphonic metal feel overall to the end part. With the choir, the heavier guitars, and it's really really good. And like I said, it very much highlights the female vocals, which is the main reason why I chose this song. There were other ones I could have done. I mean, Lemuria, but I just really like this song, always have. And other songs highlight male vocals more, and I wanted one that highlighted male vocals less. So there's very little solo male vocals in this at all, aside from that one scream. The rest is all choirs. There is a male choir in here, but there's also a female choir as well. It's it's a mixed choir. So that's the musical breakdown of this. But lyrically speaking, let's take a look at this real quick. Eros and Thanatos are branches of the same old tree, rooted in the soil of shadow and light. If God was separated from the dark twin, the devil, could he ever know the soul of mankind? We want a new God called Abraxas. Enter the Palorma and see that nothingness is all, and you must destroy a world to be born. Alpha and Omega are the beginning and the end, united in the shape of Abraxas. Darkness and the light, this is Latin. Summones ad mortis, empty fullness, Abraxas, your words is a riddle to be solved. And then the last part of the song, you bear the mark of Cain, and you are fighting like a bird to free you from the egg. The egg is all the world, the sermon to the dead, a gospel to another life. Hear the words of Cain, the sinner and the saint. The grave is a flower, and you are dying to be born, baptized by fire, and you will slough your skin. The sign of Abraxas, the circle of the solar year. Deep in the winter, you'll see the sun be born. I tried to nail the cadence because that actually is sort of it's very rapid fire, those lyrics, because you've got the choirs both singing at the same time, and they're trading. So this is a tough one to break down because I don't have a ton of knowledge about this. This one is very biblical. It's kind of funny actually because this I feel like Vin would have loved this one because of all of the religious, especially Christian symbolism in this one. Thanatos is the god of death, if I remember correctly. Eros is the god of love, I think. Are branches on the same tree, so love and death are branches of the same ancient tree, rooted in the soil. Yeah, because okay. So this actually, what he's talking about, I think, here in the beginning is balance. Death and love or life. And then shadow and light, God and the devil. And then the last line is a question, could he ever know the soul of mankind? So what the question that Mr. Carlson is posing is, if God was separated from the devil, could he know the soul of mankind? What he's getting at is that one cannot exist without the other, I believe is what he's saying. That and it's funny because for years. I grew up, and obviously those of you who were fans of old fantasy literature probably know this. My username is a reference to the Dragonlance books, which were New York Times bestsellers, but they were a D&D property, Dungeons and Dragons property, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons specifically. But they were unique in that they were bestsellers. They weren't just niche stuff. They were huge. I would say a lot of people like me were probably actually exposed to Dungeons and Dragons through um, these books and the books that were written by R.A. Salvatore, by the Forgotten Realms books about Drizzt the Dark Elf. So I think those books actually brought a lot of people into this world. But one of the prevailing themes of Dragonlance was that light could not exist without dark. In the history of that world, there was this great holy being, the king priest, and he wanted to wipe out all evil, you know. And what happened was, in his hubris, he fancied himself as a divine being, as a god, able to basically dictate the laws of the world. And so the gods dropped the mountain on him. Which, it sounds kind of funny to say, but that was actually what happened. They literally dropped a mountain on the city of Ishtar, and it sunk to the bottom of the ocean, and a giant bloody maelstrom took the place of where it was, and the ocean sort of filled in, and it was a never-ending whirlpool, and that was a time where the light held dominance. And what you find in the books is that balance is integral to making sure the general balance of the world is held in check. And I think that there's definitely some logic to that, because there is a natural inclination, I think, for people who are sure, and there's actually a line in the book where the god of light says, it breeds intolerance, a belief that because I am right, everyone who does not believe as I am is wrong. And we're seeing a lot of that now in just our general the political climate, obviously, in the world, where people are just unwilling to hear each other out, and they just believe that because they're right, nobody else is has a say. And it's very dangerous thinking, and it leads to horrible stuff like genocide, and that was sort of the idea. Now the world swung back the other way after the mountain was dropped on Ishtar, and darkness and evil held sway. There was roving bands of pillagers and cutthroats and stuff, and the idea was to bring balance back, and to keep the dark queen from entering the world, but not to completely destroy her, to maintain the balance. And I think that's actually a pretty awesome line. And now what I don't know about is this line: we want a new god called Abraxas. And I don't know enough about this stuff to know what Abraxas is or what it represents. So we'll table that one. And then this next line: enter the pleroma. I don't even know. And then the next thing is interesting because, and see that nothingness is all. You must destroy a world to be born. Alpha and Omega are the beginning of the end, united in the shape of Abraxas. This might actually be, there's a type of, and I don't know enough about it, but I know there's various black metal bands that hold to this sort of, this nothingness theory. You know, I mean, this is nihilistic for sure, but not. It's not straight nihilism. There's more to it than just nihilism. There's a mythology and a methodology to this, because they're talking about Alpha and Omega, which is Greek for the beginning and the end. So, but I don't know what the Abraxas means. And then he says darkness and light. Simona's ad mortis, which I don't know what that means. It's Latin. Empty fullness. It says after in parentheses, so maybe that's what it means. And again, like I said, that the balance, empty fullness. It's like this whole song is a contradiction. And maybe they show a picture of a man with a lion's head. And maybe that's kind of the whole point. Abraxas means contradiction, perhaps. And then this last one there's tons of religious symbolism in here. And like I said, I don't know enough about Christianity to be able to. You bear the mark of Cain. Now I obviously know who Cain is. I went to Catholic schools. You're fighting like a bird to free you from the egg. The egg is all the world. So you're fighting to be free from the world, basically. The sermon to the dead, a gospel to another life. Hear the words of Cain, the sinner and the saint. Is a really interesting line because of who Cain was. He murdered his brother. But I don't know enough about him in the Bible to know whether he did things that were good as well. I mean, obviously we know what he did that was bad. But we don't know, like it says here, that he is a saint. Now, is that celebrating his, because, like I said, there's definitely a cult, and there's black metal roots to these guys, right? So there is some stuff in here that's probably pretty controversial. I mean, for, the grave is a flower. Well, so there's, again, that contradiction, death and life. The flower represents life, the grave represents death. Baptized by fire, and you will shed your skin, slough your skin, which means to shed your skin. The sign of Abraxas, the circle of the solar year. Deep in the winter, you will see the sun be born. Again, another contradiction. This whole song, all throughout the song, all the lyrics, it's all contradictions. Darkness and light. Or you could say two sides of the same coin, right? I mean, it depends on how you look at it. Very interesting stuff. This song is, for me, one of my favorite Therions. It's not my favorite from them by any measure, but definitely up there. I mean, I would say this is like a 9 for me out of 10. Really, really good song, very strong. I'd love to see this done. It's a shame they never played this live when they had Mats with them. I saw them during 2 tours where they had, I think both of the tours where they had Mats, where they toured the U.S. And they never played this song, unfortunately. They didn't start playing it until recently, which is interesting. And I wonder why that might have been. Yeah, it's interesting. But anyways, that's it. That was Therion, and hope you guys enjoyed it. Give me some feedback on the audio quality, changes with the video and stuff like that, and let me know what you guys think. And then if you've got ideas for next week, I've got about 4 or 5 songs for next week, but I'm looking to try and do like maybe 6 or 7 songs a week. So we're looking to step it up a little bit. So I'm looking for some suggestions from you guys. So if you got anything, don't be stupid with your suggestions, but yeah, I mean, throw them out there and let me know. So, Kalendros out. Stay metal.